Okay, so you're going to hear a lot from me talking about student recruitment now. And rather than repeat what's already in the toolkit, I thought I would investigate a little bit further. So that means surveying our current students and talking to a number of school counselors and teachers to get their feedback about what works and what doesn't work when recruiting students to programs like ours. I'll be speaking mostly about FNC, which I realize is very different from a lot of other programs. We have up to 45 students per year. And to get that many students, I will be in contact with at least 20 different high schools and organizations. And I will probably give about a dozen presentations each year and do a number of other things to really generate applications. So while that's probably a lot more than anybody else needs to do, learned a lot, and I'm very happy to share some of those lessons with all of you. And you'll be hearing from a lot of the voices that I collected in doing this research. Okay. So in framing my thoughts, we'll start with understanding student motivations, and every counselor I spoke with said this is what they do when trying to pitch summer programs to their students. Next, we'll talk about partnering with those schools, teachers, and counselors, and finally generating applications. So we'll open with a quote from a student, fittingly. Here is Habiba pitching to her peers. She says, FNC is a great and productive way to spend your summer. I encourage every junior to apply because you would make great memories, think critically, and improve a lot of skills, communication, writing, reading, and more. The best thing is you don't really need to have a passion for political theory or philosophy before joining the program. I could probably just stop this whole section just here with Habiba's words because she's hitting on all the things. It's a good way to spend your summer, productive. It's fun, you make memories, you think critically, that's a huge one for our students, and those academic skills. And of course, that you don't need to already know anything about political theory or philosophy. So thinking beyond Habiba to our whole class this year, when we asked them why did they apply, the majority are talking about big questions. So here's Jamie and how he phrases that. I learned about FNC from research online. Reading the description, I was infatuated with one simple phrase about how you will look at the world differently. This made me extremely interested since I felt that I didn't want to view the world from my perspective, but from others. So we'll hear that sentiment repeated over and over from our students, and they're talking about big questions and thinking over and over again. A quarter of our students mentioned specifically reading and writing skills. A few of them talked about specifically college access and thinking about their college applications, and then a number of other keywords. Not surprisingly, when we ask them why did they apply and then ask them how would they recruit juniors at their school, a lot of the same priorities are present. So the majority are thinking big questions, new perspective, then those academic skills again, and the college experience, the access. They'll talk about the professors, the campus. And then for the next four, here's a quote from a current student, Pauline. When she's pitching to juniors in her school, she says, FNC is not an easy program. And that's how she starts it. She says, it requires time, effort, and commitment to succeed. Do not fear, though. Everyone in FNC is very supportive and will happily guide you whenever you feel lost or uncertain. This is a safe space where you will learn from your mistakes, not be mocked for them. You'll meet students from around NYC who will broaden your perspective in life, and you'll form friendships like no other. I think it's important to our students that this is a challenge and that they identify as people who want to challenge themselves, but also having that support. That's just as important to them. And of course, friendships and fun. And here's another student speaking about that last topic, social issues.
It's an opportunity to, I guess, branch out. You will be able to maybe learn about a topic you didn't know you were interested in. I didn't know I was disinterested into housing and immigration, but I found myself really passionate about it. Also, beside only learning life lessons, you will find connections and friends, I guess, for the rest of your life.
And the survey that this data is from the end of the summer, and Amina is speaking during the academic year. So I think they think a lot more about the social issues and the civic engagement starting in September. So these are the keywords that I will use in any presentation, in brochures, in all of our language. The big questions and thinking, the academic skills, college experience, and all the way down. All of these, I think, matter to our students. Once we have those motivations in mind, we have to think about partnering with our schools and the motivations and needs of our school counselors and teachers. So you're going to hear now from Maria Friss, who's worked with us at 2 different New York City high schools and at the Double Discovery Center. She's been sending students to us, I think, since our first year. So this is what it means for her, for our schools to be partnering together.
It becomes part of the school culture that this is an opportunity. This is like a big thing, and they'll get it. There's not a teacher that I've ever worked with that did not understand that this was a life-changing opportunity.
So if you can get yourself a Maria Friss in your schools who will talk about, make it a part of the school culture, you're done. One year she sent us 15 students. That's amazing. How do we get that though? How do we start from nothing to building such a great relationship? First, why is this so important? The vast majority of our students apply to our program because an individual told them that they should apply, that this fit their interests. Many fewer of them were encouraged to apply just from my presentation alone or from the internet. And here's how a student, Evie, talks about that. I learned about F&C through a friend at school that told me it was a course that went with my personality and interests. I think when she started speaking of the big questions that were asked and the texts that were read, it encouraged me to apply because I love thinking beyond my horizons. So she's repeating those same themes, big questions, horizons, thinking, but it took somebody knowing her and saying, you fit this bill. And so we really need those college counselors, those school teachers to help us get students to apply. So what are those teachers and counselors looking for? Here is Meredith Smart, who is a new recruitment partner for us, but has a lot of experience getting students to apply for summer programming.
I know guidance counselors in New York City are bombarded with the number of students that they have to serve. So just knowing that they are getting a 3 to 4 week experience in the summer, but then you're continuing college application support throughout the school year, I think that's monumental. And then your track record, 99% into college.
Yeah.
You're kind of like helping guidance counselors do their work. And so if they can see the benefit as you're supporting them too, and not just supporting the student, then I'm like, I need all the support I can get.
And here's Anel Lopez, who is also a new recruitment partner.
My main 3 points would be just that they are able to develop themselves linguistically, in written form, that they are and that they are supported, and that they, that it's something that will prepare them for college. And so for my more active, my more academic driven students, this is a perfect pitch.
So many of these things may seem obvious, like mentioning that it's a free program for students, but I've forgotten to say that in the past. So definitely talk about these things when you're working with counselors. Their inboxes are filled with paid programs for their students, so that will help us stand out. The college acceptance rate, even if you don't have one yet, saying at similar programs they have 100% college acceptance rate. Obviously that makes a big deal, especially in New York, where I mean, this is nationwide, counselors have on average 400 student caseload each year. As Meredith said, they need all the help they can get. That it's a year-long program. This is really important to so many of our teachers, that it's a quality program, that it's not just drop in, drop out, that you'll stick with the students. That really matters to them. And then the college campus experience. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a school and I've said, how many of you have ever been to Columbia's campus? And just a few kids will raise their hands, and we are 3 blocks from campus, literally. The counselors and the teachers in the room know that about their students, know that there is this divide, this barrier, and it means so much to them, not only that we can come to them, but that we're inviting the students to the campus. So those are some things that I would definitely focus on. And then we're going to need those counselors to help us, get out the word to the students. It's really never enough to send an email or just to have a brochure. So here's Bridget Kilpatrick, a teacher who's sent us quite a number of students.
When my students at Maxine Green got to meet Professor Montas, like that sold them. Like that was it. They all wanted to do it. They walked away from that intro meeting and they were like, we're doing this.
And she actually, took the subway with her students after school one day to bring them to campus to have a meeting with Professor Montas. So she actually did a lot of work to make that happen. And if you can send Professor Montas anywhere, I would do it. But there's a ton of other ways to get students interested.
And I think the ability to know that someone from you or someone else from the program will thinks it's important enough to be able to visit with a group of students. I think whether it be Zoom or in person, whatever the situation may be, is important. That's number one.
So from their conversations from others, having any kind of professor visit, a meet and greet, just that connection is meaningful for the students and the teachers. In addition to that, in place connected to it, a tech study goes a long way in helping students understand what this program will be about. And I especially do that in schools where this is kind of a foreign concept, a college preparedness program. I've brought in, a paragraph of Aristotle on friendship, and we've had a debate about whether someone you follow on Instagram is a friend or not. And it just creating that energy, that enthusiasm, that big questioning is often enough to get them interested in the rest of the program. When I'm short on time, because the tech study might be 30, 40 minutes, 20 or 15 minutes, I would just do a straight presentation and really focus on those keywords that we opened these slides with. And once you have alumni, absolutely use them to your advantage. I'll rarely have alumni give a presentation on their own because they're just generally not that comfortable with public speaking at that level. But if I'm giving a presentation, I'll ask them questions. I'll ask them to share their experiences, kind of set them up to bring color to the words that I'm saying. So finally, we've gotten into the schools, we've worked with the teachers. How do we get kids to actually apply? And there's 2 parts to it. One is having them start the application, see that this is something they want to do, and then following through and finishing the application. So here's Maria again.
So it's really being able to kind of reassure them that FNC is looking for a student that has the capacity to engage, to be part of a discussion, to, that's a little bit brave, right? That hasn't had that opportunity to shine in that way. It doesn't have to be an A student, but it's a student that cares, right? And certainly can foresee a role for themselves and their peers, their family in the future in a different way.
So keeping that in mind, that finding that brave student, that student who is looking for that challenge, we want to understand more about their context. And I use that when I am presenting to students to really think about what's going to get them to see themselves in the program. Bridget's going to talk about her experience at the 2 high schools that that we've worked with, both the same demographics, but very different resources and support for their students.
Both schools are Title I schools, meaning most students are living at or below the poverty level. At Maxine Green, there was a lot lower of a graduation rate in 4 years, lower student performance overall. Not as many summer programs were reaching out to these students, so they were definitely interested and driven and really wanted to have these summer program opportunities. Where I think at Manhattan Center, that school is one of the highest performing schools in the city. They have a lot of summer programs, although a lot of them are STEM oriented, but so are a lot of the students, because it is a math and science school. So a lot of the students do want to do STEM programs, but the Freedom and Citizenship program definitely appealed to and resonated with a lot of the students who maybe didn't want to do something STEM oriented, or who were more interested in that collegiate experience that Freedom and Citizenship offers, where a lot of traditional summer programs, still kind of center around that high school oriented space.
So, at these two different schools, I would have two different pitches. So for students who are interested in STEM or STEM-minded programs, I'll talk about why would a scientist be interested in philosophy? And of course, so many of our philosophers are scientists, there's no distinction between science and philosophy for them. And how can they still benefit from stronger reading and writing skills? 46% of the students who join our program plan to major in STEM fields. So this is an important conversation to have, and it's not a lost conversation. They get it, and they see why humanities can help them. If they're getting other college access programs pitched to them, what is unique about this? It's those big questions. It's the philosophy, it's the literature, it's the humanities. Really, nobody else does what we do. So get them interested in those, of course. And then for schools that are more like Maxine Green, where they're not getting told about college access programming or anything like this, I take a step back and talk about what is a college prep program? What will the summer be like? Why might this be helpful, not only in applying to college and getting accepted to college, but preparing for college? Why is this not just summer school? And that's important work to do to get them to apply. And then definitely true at that Maxine Green High School, but in a lot of our high schools, students would otherwise be working. So if you're going to ask them to give up a job for a few weeks, why is this an investment in their future is an important conversation to have. And logistically, I will always tell students, you can work on the weekends and in August, so it's not a completely one or the other kind of choice. Once we have that first pitch of you should apply, and then it's how do you apply? How do we get them to actually submit applications? And there are certainly some barriers here.
And there's some students like, oh, write the essay, they'll get into it. But many students, when you say write an essay, it's just like a barrier. They're intimidated. They feel like it's extra and a lot of work. And so what I've noticed is in the beginning, they'll see it as a barrier, but then if we show that we're vested in them and we're here to support them through the process because we want them to win, they begin to trust us and follow us in the process.
And here's Maria explaining what that actually looks like in the high schools when they apply to FNC.
Build in the time to work with the kids as a group, and then also one-on-one with literally compiling, that application. What doesn't work? I wonder if I can go right to that. I'm ashamed to say this, but when I've gotten busy with so many other things that I might be involved with, whether it be, trying to stage the SAT, recruitment, and then, oh my God, there's Saturday programs and there's Tuesdays after school. I've been doing sailing programs in the past. Oh my gosh, I have to get them to the pier, I've tried in the past to nominate a student, maybe an alum or someone that I trust, almost like a TA, to assist with that, with the completion of the applications. And some years it's worked, and other times I just didn't, do a great job at bonding them to the opportunity. And if they weren't alums themselves, it was falling a little bit flat.
So even stellar counselors like Maria, such wonderful partners, need help getting the students to finish their applications. And I think COVID really pointed out to me what kind of work they're doing in the schools, in the hallways, and casual meetings, saying, you should apply. Have you applied yet? Because the number of students who began applications remained the same, and the number of students who completed applications really dropped. And I know that that's because that interaction between counselor and student was missing with virtual schooling. So what can you do? Workshops, school-based, program-based, help students just brainstorm, outline, draft, edit their essays. And then secondly, that one-on-one counselor follow-up. I mean, there's not much you can do other than ask counselors about your student applications, but it means it's such a difference. Nominations, I know Yale has teachers nominate their students, in any way that you can have, where you can reach out individually to a student to say, this program fits you, you should apply, and you have a good chance of getting accepted if you apply. I think that makes a big difference. And then lastly, I always ask my counselors for feedback on applications. So what timeframes work for their school? A March submission deadline works well, since counselors are really focused on seniors' college applications through January and February, and then in March they can think about the juniors and summer programs. Letters of recommendation, at some schools it's no big deal. Bridget mentioned it's she thinks of it as a rough draft for her college letters that she'll write 6 months later. At other schools it's just too much, they can't do it, and so we work on a school by school basis about what we can use and what's helpful to that school. So those are the big points: understanding our motivations, partnering with our schools, and generating applications. I hope this is all more than you really need to know, but I would love to answer any questions that you all have, and I will stop sharing.